Welcome back to the channel. We are here once again with my Cub Cadet Model 149, or known around here as the 14. And I call it that because it's 14 horsepower. This is your first visit to the channel. There is a playlist for this thing, which I will link right up here, as well as down in the description, so you can go get all caught up on all the happenings. What we're going to do today, I think, is going to be a pretty short and fun one. One of the things I haven't shown on the channel yet is doing an oil change on this engine with a deck on one. And that's not typically too much fun because the deck and the oil plug are kind of in the same house with each other. And you've only got, maybe an inch or two in there to actually get a drain pan in. I've also made the condition on this one somewhat worse because I've kind of permanently blocked the deck up because this thing is always cut too short for my taste. And when I say permanent, I'm exaggerating. That's a magnet and that's a magnet. They're just super strong rare earth magnets. That's a pipe fitting, and this is the stop for the hydraulic height control. So I can take those magnets and that pipe fitting and crap off and drop the deck more if I want. I'm just too lazy to bother. And it's got some sort of internal bypass in the hydraulic deck lift system. So if you just lift the deck with the hydraulics, it'll sink by the time you get about one lap around the yard. So this one has even less travel in it. So I'm gonna try something kind of fun. Those of you who watch every video on the channel have probably seen me use this thing before. What this actually is a power vacuum bleeder for brakes. But what it's excellent at is any sort of fluid transfer. So you just plug a compressed air hose into one side, pull the trigger, and it'll just suck up anything you want through the hose. And this stick on the end of the hose is just a piece of brake line that just happens to fit this silicone hose nicely, so I just keep it with it. What the plan here is I'm hoping to yank the dipstick out of the thing, stick this down in there, and suck probably 90% of the oil out through the fill hole. And then we'll get under it with some sort of really shallow drain pan and see if we can get the rest. This thing was just out mowing grass about 15 minutes ago for, probably an hour, hour and a half, however long it takes me to mow. So the oil in it is still nice and hot, so it should flow pretty well. So I'm thinking this is gonna work out pretty nicely for us. So this should be pretty straightforward. Just yank our dipstick. And like I said, this thing was just out working, so it's plenty warm. Set it off to the side. And since this stick is about to go into our engine, give it a quick little wipe down. Then this should be, I'm thinking, pretty drama-free. Let's try and wing her on down there as far as I can and just lay on the trigger. Yep. Up comes a bubbling crude. This is going a fair bit slower than I'd hoped, but it is going. And the handle on this thing does have a lock, so I'm just gonna lock it on and just let it go. So that line there should be just about a quart, I think. I'm gonna go ahead and kick the compressor back on and let it run back up to pressure. Dump this out and we'll go again. This thing has like a 1.5 quart oil system, so we're doing pretty good here. Give her another go. I don't think it's actually pulling any oil right there. I don't see anything coming through the hose. There, we got it. All right, so that looks like about all we're gonna get out of it that way, which I think is almost all of it anyway. This thing is awesome. I will leave a link for it down in the description. I need to do a review of it on its own, but I kind of like just engaging it in these weird random projects that it's totally not meant for, just to see how it is gonna continue to do. And here we are under what would be the passenger side of the tractor if, it were a car. That there, which you can just barely see, is the oil drain plug. This is the frame carriage for the deck. So what tends to happen with this thing is you can't really fit much of a drain pan in here. And if you just put one under the carriage with the deck on it, that front roller usually spaces it out far enough that it doesn't really want to catch much of anything. Like right there's just a little bucket, and it's going to be a little challenging to show, but that is basically in plane with this plate. There's almost nowhere for it to drop to drain. So this issue is actually the root of all my trouble here. Really what I should do is just take a hole saw and just cut a little circle out of that plate. But this thing's made it for like 50 years without a hillbilly doing that to it so far, so I guess I won't. What I think I am going to do though is just put a floor jack under the front of this thing just to pick it up, just to kind of help change that geometry. And then of course I'm going to wipe down that plug before I take it out, but then just take the plug out and see if it'll just drop in there. And it should only be like a few ounces of oil if we did this right, so let's see what happens. So despite my best efforts, I think this thing is still going to make kind of a mess anyway, but probably way less of a mess. Yeah, all the way all over the roller. That's okay. Can you imagine, 1.5 quart doing that though? That would have been bad, huh? I think jacking it up in the front actually made things worse. The next time I do this, I might jack it up in the rear. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually made the waterfall go toward the roller. But now you see why I'm making the video, because this job kind of sucks. But I'm going to let it sit there and drip for a while. It shouldn't be too long since that oil's so warm, and then I'll put the plug in it and fill the thing back up. And after leaving it to drain for quite a long while, and about half of that is brake clean, you can see we only got just a couple more ounces out of it by dumping the oil out of the plug. And most of the color you see there is from the grass that was dumped in there. I don't know if it'll show on camera, but that's actually green when you really start to look at it. It may not be the right thing to do, but at least for this tractor and the way I use it for a mid-season change, because this thing gets like probably 70-ish hours a year, and the oil change interval is like 50. It's only getting like 30, 35 hours for a change, just depending on when I change and all that. But blah, blah, blah. At least for a mid-season change, I'm probably just gonna suck it out and refill it from now on. And then in the spring, I'll do a complete dump before the deck goes on. Because as we saw, what I said earlier in the video isn't quite accurate. It's not so much the plate on the deck carrier, it's the roller on the deck. So with that roller out of the way, it's not a big deal to get a pan in there to dump it. And I always store this thing without the deck just because it's about a foot narrower for the other 6 months of the year. So I hope you guys agreed with my earlier prediction that that was in fact a pretty fun and hopefully short video where we could just do something kind of interesting on the tractor in kind of a different way. As always, I appreciate you guys stopping in for this video. We'll catch you on the next one. I'm Max, that's Saddington Bear, and we make videos like this all the time. Here are a couple links to some other videos we've made, and we really appreciate you guys stopping in.